It's time for the State of Pro Wrestling, scheduled for one fall with a 60-minute time limit. And now, from parts unknown, your tag team champions of the world, John Orlando for the PVDCast and Gerald Glassford from the Pop Culture Cosmos. Ding, ding, ding! And we're back with another episode of the State of Pro Wrestling for the months of January and February. It is Gerald Glassford, along with my tag team partner, the undefeated, undisputed World Heavyweight Champion of the PVDcast, and also Matt Talk. It is, of course, John Orlando. John, great to have you back, my friend. Always looking forward to hearing what you have to say about what's going on inside the squared circle.
You're so excited to be back that you're tongue-tied already.
Oh man, I was like, it was going smooth and then just like crash landing, just like my entire day. But I will tell you, my friend, it's always good to have you here. It is, of course, the State of Pro Wrestling. Want to go ahead and let everybody know that we're going to be touching on the AEW and WWE, TNA, and all that good stuff here in North America. I did want to propose to you, John, before I forget.
Okay.
Next month, we got to go ahead and spend some time on Japanese wrestling and talk about the state of Japanese pro wrestling. We need to do our research on that. It may not be as, I guess, how should I say, as inspiring as it once was right now. I think Japanese wrestling is at a crossroads. Maybe they won't admit it to themselves, but the business is not there what it once was. But maybe we'll find some solutions. Some gaijins out from outside maybe can have a better eye on what's going on in Japanese pro wrestling. So yeah, maybe we should devote a segment to that next month if we can.
Hey, I'm all for it. I always look forward to coming on and talking with you about all the wrestling news, no matter where it comes from. And taking a plunge and talking about some All Japan, New Japan, and Pro Wrestling Noah and all those other great promotions. I think that might be in order.
Yep, absolutely. We'll go ahead and do a deep dive on that on next month's episode. But this month, it is all about the pro wrestling here in the United States. Pro wrestling in the U.S. starts off here really for the year of 2025 this weekend with the Royal Rumble. WWE coming off its success earlier this month with the debut of Raw on Netflix. Saturday night's main event happening last week. All the stuff that they got coming up on the way overseas. They're announcing PLEs in Paris. And they've got the Saudi Arabia for Royal Rumble next year. I've got the London mayor swearing to God he's going to go ahead and get a London WrestleMania one of these years. And then you've got all the dates that they advertised for their house shows. And then they've got upcoming Saturday night's main events, Raws that they still have to go. SmackDown. Can't forget about that.
You're forgetting NXT?
NXT, absolutely. And NXT just created its own YouTube channel. Just saw that they debuted it within the past couple of days. So go ahead and check that out there. I don't know how much better or worse it could be than WWE Vault, because WWE Vault seems to me as good as it's going to get for a YouTube channel, but they've got a lot in the archives there. But don't forget Elimination Chamber next month, and then, of course, the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania here in Las Vegas. They're advertising for all the stuff, John. So all the stuff is coming to you. So I ask you, my friend, how much is too much, WWE?
Well, that's a fabulous question. Because you're right. It seems like there's just so much. And to be 100% honest, I forgot all about Saturday night's main event. I forgot about it until Tuesday or Wednesday of this past week. I totally forgot about it. Like I knew it was coming. I knew it was happening, but I just plumb forgot about it, if you will, until like I said, Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to have to make sure that I watch that, because I really enjoyed the first one and I really enjoyed the second one. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that, but I want to stay on target here and talk about too much WWE. I don't know. It seems like Seems like they have event after event after event already scheduled, but the people are coming. The people are plunking down their hard-earned money to sit in the arena and to watch the show and to go to the PLEs, and everything is just coming up roses for the WWE. It seems that they can't really miss. They have a few missteps, but they don't have a giant blunder, I don't think, in these last, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, whatnot.
This will be the period of time, John, when all those wrestlers that are in the WWE now, when they have interviews 10 to 15 years down the line, they'll remark back. And even though it is not entirely true, they'll tell you that they had sellout after sellout after sellout. You know how every old wrestler these days, when you hear them so yeah, we sold out every building, every arena that we ever were. No, you didn't. You did on occasion, but no, it's not to that extent. In this case, for the WWE, it's almost correct because they're selling out almost every building that they're in. They are on a high. The move to Netflix has increased their volume on their viewership from, let's say, around 1.5 million here, United States, to 2 million as far as their viewership, depending on which Raw or SmackDown. Raw is now somewhere between the 2.5 to 3.5 million barrier right now, based on the numbers that they're. The 6 million number for the initial episode is a big win for them as far as total viewership, both during and after the airing. I think that's a huge win for Raw on Netflix. But right now, after week 3, it's looked like it's settling in right around the 3 million mark, which has to be a huge win for them. That's worldwide, but still, that's a huge audience that they're getting for them from what they were getting before. More eyes on the product, which is always good for them. And again, I can't say I blame them for lining up all this stuff, because as long as we as an audience keep on coming, they're going to keep on putting them out.
And look, the thing that I have noticed, and to me, I don't know if a lot of wrestling fans will notice this or care, but I do. I notice this and I care about this, and it's clearly very, very visible on Netflix. They're doing innovative stuff with the way that they film wrestling now. Like I like those, I don't know what to call them, like those drone shots where they swoop in around like, to me, that's so different and so innovative. Growing up as a kid, that was not, you got the hard cam and you got the handheld, but now they're implementing all this kind of basically Hollywood style of catching the action. And I mean, again, it's a small thing. It's a very small thing, but for me, that's the biggest revelation for me is checking that out and seeing how they're presenting a new way to see the matches.
And I'll tell you what, though, my friend, it is WWE doing too much right now. You know what? You can't argue with their success. So I'd have to say right now it's no, but man, it's saturated right now. I'll just leave it at that. But you know what? They're getting it. They're bringing them in, and they're knocking them out. They're doing a great job with their storylines. Right now, this is another golden age for them at this point in time. So we'll see how that, is keep. The thing is, you have the golden age. You get to the point where you are at the peak, like once again that they were in the 90s, late 90s, excuse me. Then, maybe there were other periods of time before this, but there's also been some downtimes as well. But you get to a point where it's like at a really high note, and the job is now much harder for Triple H, who is being rumored to be the first person or the big name that's going to be entered into the WWE Hall of Fame. That news came down earlier today. But I will say this, if you're Triple H, the job for you is very hard right now, even more difficult than before, because it's just like Cody Rhodes. The story getting the title was great. Now try to make it just as great now that you have it. So with the WWE, the story of how you got to the success has been great, but can you sustain it?
Well, that's going to be the $1 million question. And I don't know. I have to confess, I hate when people go in the Hall of Fame and then they come back to, we've seen it time and time again. I just feel like when you go into a Hall of Fame, you should be done. Your career should be done. And I know that in the ring, Triple H's career is over, but he's still he's the man behind the flagship. That's kind of, if you will, to borrow a description of this, it's like when Barry Horowitz used to pat himself on the back. That's what it kind of reminds me of. And I just feel, wait till you're done. Wait till you're done, and then go into the Hall of Fame. I don't know. That's a pet peeve of mine.
Well, Vince McMahon agreed with you. He never wanted to be inducted into the Hall of Fame until he was done, or posthumous, or what have you. He did not want to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. And well, that's, I guess, one thing Vince and I can agree on. But yeah, I mean, great for him. Triple H certainly deserves the accolades. He's had a heck of a career in the ring. He's had a great career outside of the ring. And I agree with you that, you've reached this height with the WWE. Now you got to maintain it or even accelerate it and go higher. Maybe by striking some of those deals that they have done, which I assume we're going to discuss. TNA is now going to be working with NXT, which that opens up a whole plethora of options and opportunities for people on both sides of the fence, both TNA and WWE. I believe Jordan Grace just signed with the company, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Alexander, rumored to be heading that way, and a handful of other folks. And I assume that you're probably going to see some of these other folks from NXT be making their rounds on the TV program for TNA. So, and they got that working agreement with All Japan as well. So I think those steps are going to maybe help to keep that momentum going and going and going up for the WWE.
Don't forget Monty Gold, and then also Josh Parnett's promotion as well, because Shayna Baszler works occasionally for him with his Bloodsport. With his, it's interesting because at various times Vince did try to go ahead and work with other promotions, and then other times he would just say, you know what, forget everybody else. I'm going to be on an island of my own. And now it seems that they don't have to do this, but they it's just the fact that WWE is solidifying itself with these companies is just very interesting indeed. Before we get to the WWE TNA relationship, the rise of NXT and all that stuff on today's show, and also our Royal Rumble predictions and so on, I want to go ahead and ask you your thoughts. You've seen now 2 episodes of Saturday Night's Main Event. You wanted to touch on it. I wanted to make sure we didn't forget about it. Again, the first episode I called one of the best episodes of wrestling television I have seen this century. This episode, even though I knew if I was a betting man, I would have been right on every single bet that I would have made, still, the presentation was absolutely outstanding once again. I really think this is probably their best show quality-wise overall.
I agree with you tenfold on that. I feel like this episode was 5 times better than the opening episode, the very first episode, and I really liked it. I mean, let's count down the ways that it was great. Jesse the Body Ventura seems like he's in the rhythm now, where maybe he wasn't on that first show, but he's got the nerves out of the way or whatever. He's got it now. When he was commentating with McAfee and Cole, it was classic Jesse. Look, we had clean finishes. We have yet to have some weird, wacky finish on a Saturday Night's Main Event. We've had clean finishes. They built Jacob Fatu. While that match was maybe a little bit at the beginning, the ending and the angle that they're going with, fantastic, well done. I mean, from top to bottom, this is... Oh, and I didn't even mention that we get some legends, but we just get the right amount of legends. You know what I mean? We get 3 or 4, and that's it. And they're in the crowd. I can't think of anything else this show is missing other than if they brought back like Piper's Pit and they had the old set off to the side of the arena or the barber shop or whatever. Some interview like staple like that, I think, would be the only thing that would make Saturday Night's Main Event even better than it is. By far, it is the best WWE product out there, I think. The best show out there.
With that, though, is, of course, John Orlando from the PVDcast, along with me, Gerald Glassford, thanks again for watching us. We truly appreciate you joining us on the Pop Culture Cosmos and also as well, of course, the state of pro wrestling. So, John, I do want to delve in before we get into the Royal Rumble, before we get into our predictions, before we get into all that, and also as well touch on AEW's trip to Australia not going as well as they had hoped it would, for which reasons, which we'll go ahead and discuss here in a little bit. I wanted to go ahead and talk to you about WWE's TNA relationship. It was, like you said, certified that they now have a contracted relationship with WWE and TNA that they signed, I think last week, for 5 years, which is great for TNA. TNA, if you remember the late 2023, I had the audacity at that time, when we were talking about predictions, to say which company was going out of business. And you know what? I regrettably at that time said it was going to be TNA. I said that time it was going to go down and it was going to be filing for, out of business, all that stuff. And you look at it, then they were lining up some shows with Scott D'Amore at the Pearl here for the Palms Hotel and Casino here in Las Vegas. They had some really good tapings. Scott D'Amore came out with a very energized speech on what he felt about TNA and for its future. Little did he know that the TNA future would not include him shortly thereafter, because he left and now he's starting to get Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling up off the ground. But TNA, you started to say to yourself, okay, well, anybody was a backer with Scott D'Amore, who is such a beloved figure there, is probably going to be heading on out the door. So this could be all she wrote for TNA. But no, since then, I don't want to say they got stronger per se, but the fact is they have had some of their athletes, Jordan Grace, Joe Henry. They went on NXT and had major roles with them on several episodes. They did bring more attention to the company. They have been able to go ahead and do well in shows since. They're still only getting about 100,000 people on their Access television, so I think that's always a barrier for them to succeed any farther. But they did just recently get a full sellout 4,000 crowd for their most recent pay-per-view, which Joe Henry finally won. I don't like the fact that they emulated the Cody Rhodes storyline with him. I think they should have gotten it while it was really hot, but I still think that it could be a successful run for Joe Henry. Your thoughts on the TNA WWE relationship? Jordan Grace, as we said, has left, but I guess Tessa Blanchard, the controversial Tessa Blanchard, is now there. I want to hear your thoughts on where this relationship is going. It's obviously going to be like a feeder system back and forth between TNA talent and NXT talent. NXT is now hitting the heights of success with like 800,000 viewers weekly on an average on the CW. So they're seeing a realm of success and they're trying to pass it off on TNA. Between this, what they're doing in Japan, and the WWE ID program, it seems like WWE is gaining a foothold for the future and utilizing TNA with it.
Well, I think that the WWE also gets a benefit here, and people are probably going to say that this is a joke, but I mean it dead seriously. I think the WWE gets from the idea that they have, okay, we now have contracted people that we have. So, that whole independent contractor thing. No, we sign these people to deals. So I think that they could probably manipulate that a little bit more for their benefit with having TNA now under their umbrella, so to speak. I think it's great for TNA, obviously, when the number one promotion in the world, we'll say, is promoting you and your stars. That's absolutely a great thing. But it's also a great thing for some folks to maybe go down. There are obviously, Tony D'Angelo, for example. Maybe he could go down and have a real innovative match, a real innovative program with somebody down there on the TNA side. Like when we mentioned that we were going to talk about Joe Henry, I agree with you. I think it would have been better a few months ago when he was red hot to put the belt on him, but I don't hate that they put the belt on him now. If they did,
I don't hate it either. I just think the timing I'm assuming that they're following the Cody Rhodes playbook for it, in their own way and own style. I just don't think it will work to the same level of success that it could have been with Joe Henry getting the hype, his music hitting the charts, him becoming a talked about viral individual throughout the world on social media. That was really, I think, for in a case of a smaller organization like TNA, that's when you go ahead and hit while the iron's hot.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. But I think, to me, at this point, okay, you put the belt on Joe. Now, to me, I want to see who do you start building to feed him. And I think you have to build somebody new and fresh, because you can't, look, Moose going up against Joe Henry, I don't want to see that anymore. Okay, it's over and done with. I think Nick Namath and Joe Henry, that's over and done with. Let's move on. Let's find somebody. I actually think that there are two standouts on the NXT roster and the TNA roster that would be great. I would think that starting a program with Mike Santana would be great for Joe Henry, because he's such a different character, than Joe Henry, that could really work. And I'll say the other one that I think I would love to see a program with, and I don't know his NXT name, but I know him as Brian Pillman Jr. I think he and Joe Henry would have a fantastic run. And so for me, I think who they start building around Joe Henry, to me, is going to say whether this is a success or this was a failure. And speaking of successes and failure, if I may, for a minute, I feel like TNA did make a major blunder in signing back Tessa Blanchard. I'm sorry. There's such a pattern of behavior. I just don't feel like that's done. I still feel that there's going to be more inappropriate interactions to come, because there's never been a full-fledged apology. There was a half-hearted one a year or so ago. And why do you need her on your roster, I guess, is my question. If she is such a pain in the butt, like everybody says she is, and she's hard to deal with, and she says inappropriate things or does inappropriate things or whatever, then is she that big of a star that she's going to pull in all these ratings and all these buy rates, and people can overlook that stuff? I don't know. I don't think so, personally, myself.
So we have now TNA and WWE with this relationship going forward, where, again, it looks like it's going to be something that is a great part of TNA's future going forward. So they do have that stability. It's nice to know that they will be in business most likely for the next 5 years. I guess my next target for failure will be NWA. And that speaks for itself. I mean, does anybody ask what's going on with the NWA? First of all, no one is asking that question. And I think I answered my own question last week, and I saw a little plug that Dax Jane, who unfortunately passed away in 2024, his final matches are finally being shown here in recent times, in recent days, on NWA YouTube. So that's how bad it is right now with NWA YouTube. I mean, they just don't have the ability to go ahead and sustain themselves. But I don't know what Billy Corgan is doing, but he's certainly not making them viable at this point in time. And we'll just leave it at that. But within TNA right now, I think it is a good step for their future. Again, Tessa Blanchard being there, how is she going to be contrite? Is she going to be asking for forgiveness, even whether as a heel or whether it's as a face? She has to go ahead and speak publicly about it, because her career is never going to advance forward unless she's truly contrite with an apology. And I guess if we don't get it, then she's always going to have a ceiling on how far she's going to go, because the WWE won't touch her. If that's the case. So we will see definitely what happens. We've seen issues with the locker room before when certain individuals appear in it. So we'll have to see what goes on behind the stage. But yeah, she is someone that, again, for TNA, that does have still some roster depth issues, and will always have some roster depth issues, because they do have a limited budget to deal with. At least the influx of talent from the NXT brand is still something that they can hopefully count on for the foreseeable future, John.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, as you said, they got 5 years. I think that they probably easily could stretch that out if they do things the right way for a couple of years after that when the deal is done, or who knows, maybe the deal will be renewed. The jury is out. This is just brand new to all of us, even wrestling journalists, fans. It's all new to us, so we have no idea how it's going to shake out. But I think that definitely the sun is shining brighter a little bit in TNA land. We'll just leave it at that, and hopefully,
shining a much brighter than I thought it would be. So I'll leave it at that. So.
Yeah, and it's great for the men and women who work there. I mean, it's another place to apply your trade, which is good. I mean, I'm sure that there'll be some pay increases with the WWE. I mean, maybe not, millions and millions of dollars, but maybe there's a little pay increase for those contracted wrestlers. Who knows? But, again, it's a great place it's a great situation for, I think, TNA and for the WWE.
I'll say this. I don't know money-wise if it will be a substantial increase for those wrestlers, but for someone who may have been let go for the WWE, I'd say TNA would probably be the first place I'd want to go outside of AEW, because AEW seems like they're, in some cases, if you just grumble about the company, you don't even have the work or get paid. Hey, there you go. But outside of that, TNA would probably be the place I'd want to work, because of the fact that you are still working with the WWE. So let's say you were just a numbers cut. You were in good graces with the WWE, but creative just can't find anything for you, blah, blah, blah. They just let you go. You could go to TNA and refresh your character or your name, and you're in the spotlight still of NXT and WWE. That's probably the easiest way to get attention if you're on the outs with WWE, in a good way, so to speak. If you're on their bad list, you're always going to end up being on their bad list. But if you are someone that, let's just say, we're a number situation, because that happens. There's always a purge with WWE at some point in time during the year. Some amount of wrestlers are going to get cut, and some of it's just not personal. Some of it's just like, okay, they're mid-carder at best, or they're a low end of the carder on the WWE roster, and they'll just never they just don't see that they'll rise above that. So you can say, you know what, I think you're wrong, WWE. I'm going to go to TNA. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to get the people behind me or against me in one way or another, to the point where you have to take notice of me once again.
Yeah, I mean, all of that makes perfect sense. And let's just be honest. I mean, the only positive that you have if you were let go of the WWE is to go to TNA in order to make an impact, pun intended on that. But, other of these smaller promotions, I'm not so sure that would be something that maybe would interest a lot of the talent, is get out there and work the indies. But again, you always have AEW, which, as you so pointed out, you could wrestle 6 matches and then just sit on your couch and collect a check.
Absolutely.
Which I wouldn't hate. I won't lie. I mean, you wouldn't hate that, would you?
No, I could keep myself busy. If you're paying me $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to just stay at home, I could keep myself busy. Yeah. I could work out. I could do more reps. I could do more cardio, something like that. I mean, and that's something we could touch on with AEW here at the end of the show. If you want to go ahead, touch on the Miros, the Britt Baker situation, Ricky Starks. I mean, there's a list. Penta's tag team partner, his brother, who is still in AEW. Yeah, exactly. So he is still on the I guess, persona non grata list on the AEW. That AEW list, persona non grata, is pretty large. So yeah. I'd like to see them add Gerald Glassford to John Orlando to that list and pay us for that.
I would love that. If Tony Khan's listening, sign me up. I'll do some ring announcing work, and then you can just forget about me. Just keep sending the checks.
Once again, it is John Orlando from the PVDcast, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching and listening. The two guys that are on the latest persona non grata list for AEW. There you go. Thanks again for watching, listening. Truly appreciate it. Our checks are coming in the mail. I do want to talk about, though, the WWE. You know, this weekend, it is one of their highlighted, I guess I still call it the number two. The number two event of the year in the Royal Rumble. Obviously, a lot of good events going down as far as matches. And then, of course, the ultimate between the men's battle royal and also as well the women's Royal Rumble as well. Let's start off with the Royal Rumble itself for the men and the women. 30 wrestlers in intervals go in there. They go ahead, and then ultimately one will come out, and the winner is guaranteed a shot against one of the two champions, which, again, still annoys me to this day, at WrestleMania. So your thoughts, my friend? What's going on with the Royal Rumble? Who do you think will come out on top in the Royal Rumble 2025? Somebody say like a CM Punk, or maybe John Cena, who's on the supposed last retirement tour. He better not wrestle again because they're spending so much time and energy in it. He swears he's not going to. But you and I both know it's the sport of pro wrestling. Okay,
Yeah.
him, one of those guys, or would you put in, let's say, a Roman Reigns? Would you put, say, a member of the Bloodline? Would you, like Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa? Would you put in someone like a Drew McIntyre? Sami Zayn, as far as maybe a guy with a long shot? Who out there do you think will win it all at the Royal Rumble Men's 2025 Royal Rumble?
Well, I think the roster for the Royal Rumble for the men is so deep. I mean, they've released about 15, 16, 17 names. They haven't released all the names yet, but it's deep because you could say Roman Reigns and people would not laugh at you. They go, yeah, that's a possibility. You could say Drew McIntyre and people again would say that's a good possibility. CM Punk. Yeah, Sami Zayn, certainly.
Braun Breaker.
Braun Breaker. Yeah, you got all these folks, but I'm going with John Cena. I think that they give him one more go round. He enters the Royal Rumble. He wins it. He goes to Mania. I would like, though, for one thing to happen in both these Royal Rumble matches. We need to stop with having the persons that are 1 and 2 enter and go the distance. That's done and played out. Just stop doing it, please. Please. It's ridiculous at this.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you a bit because, again, when you do that, it's great for a storyline, but we've seen that storyline play itself out on a number of occasions already. And the first time it happened, it was great. The second time it happened was great. Actually, people often get Ric Flair's great Royal Rumble, him as number 1. He was not number 1, if you remember. He was actually number 3 in that scenario, which is, it's something that people forget about. But yeah, his great run, all the great Royal Rumbles. Again, we've seen that storyline play itself out already. Yeah, I would. And then besides, there's no like Steve Austin against Vince McMahon, where Vince McMahon is trying to fix where Steve Austin's character is not going to have the least. It's going to have the least amount of chance to win, but ultimately will win. We've seen that scenario done before, so this is just a straight up Royal Rumble. So I have a tendency to say that's a good shot. He would probably be number 1 or number 2 in the odds as far as him winning right now, just because, like you said, final year, all the hype around it. Will he win the mythical 17th World Championship, which we all know is not the actual most amount of World Championship victories? I just wish Ric Flair would just come clean and say, you know what, I think it's around 23, 22, because I dropped it here, I gained it here, like the Japanese stuff, the overseas stuff, as far as the switches are concerned, that were never really recorded, but people still know about. So yeah, again, it is what it is. And professional wrestling changes its history often. I am going to go ahead and say CM Punk. CM Punk is in his mid-40s. CM Punk does, just looking at him, you could just tell he is not as nimble or as, I guess, athletic or as speedy as he once was. his moves are not as quick. His moves are not as sharp. If you take it, he's still good. It's still good, still entertaining, but it's just not what it once was. Even though his matches against Drew McIntyre were absolutely excellent, including also as well in the cage as well. That the Hell in the Cell was absolutely one of the best matches of last year, bar none. But you just see he is not the wrestler that he once was. You can see that period of time where he missed off with injuries. It's just taken its toll over the years. But I still think he has one good run left. I still think he does. I still think he believes in himself that he does have one run left, but he is also very injury prone. So knowing this, if I was a WWE, I would bank on him now, put the money on him now, go ahead and have him win now, because if CM Punk is still very much, I guess, a crowd favorite, a fan favorite. Him talking smack on Hulk Hogan got him a huge pop the other, a couple weeks ago. He is absolutely one of the most popular wrestlers in the sport today. And we've seen in AEW and in WWE where he drives business up and he drives ratings up. Again, knowing his injury history, I would really want to go ahead and take advantage of it now while he's actually still able to get in the ring.
And to go along with that storyline, if you will, I think that you put him in 22, 23, number 24, because then that reduces the opportunity possibly to get injured. If you do,
because he did get injured at last year's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, so I mean, again, that shows the depth of the men's roster for this event. Is that right there? Any of those individuals that we mentioned would be a fine fit to go and challenge against Cody or Gunther. Whoever's the champion for Mania, which I think it's pretty safe to say that they're probably going to keep the belts on Cody and Gunther for Mania. I don't see anybody challenging and upsetting Cody or Gunther for the title. So I think that it also that adds a wrinkle, because would you like to see Cena versus Gunther, which would be a great match? Or would it be something a little more unique since it's his last time around, him and Cody, which I think could be a heck of a match?
I'm still going to go with Cena and Gunther, and then go with Rhodes and CM Punk, and then also on the side, Rock versus Roman. I really think that's I think that's as far as just getting fans in the door and filling up Allegiant Stadium over the course of 2 days. I think those are your three best bets on getting an audience in there. That's just my personal point of view on that. If I'm wrong, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com or the PVDcast. So I will say this again, when it comes right down to it, it's going to be entertaining nonetheless. Your thoughts, though, my friend, on the women's Royal Rumble that's coming up. Nia Jax, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, Naomi, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Lyra Valkyria, Ivy Nile, Io Sky. There's more to be announced. Rumors have Asuka ready to go after her knee injury. So, there could be other surprises as well. Jordan Grace has been talked about, although she swears she's not going to be anywhere near Indianapolis, where it's taking place. Your thoughts on who you think, this one is not as clear cut. Who do you think will win the Women's Royal Rumble this time around?
From the names they've released so far, they are not giving us a lot to go on in terms of picking somebody to win this. By default, I'm going to say Charlotte Flair. I don't really want to see that, but I feel like it makes the most sense because she's coming back. She's been gone for a while. What a better way to reintroduce her to the WWE universe than at a big event like the Royal Rumble. Maybe that there's going to be a little bit of that. Maybe they're building that friction between Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. That type of storyline of I'm the new kid on the block. You're the old washed up has been, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going with Charlotte Flair from what they announced so far. I hope that as they start releasing more and more names, that we see a much fuller roster, because obviously they're probably going to pull in. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. They'll probably have Michin in that. They'll definitely have Chelsea Green and Piper Nevin. They're probably adding a bunch more, but I think just from who's there, and unless Vakor and Julia are in it, I could see them winning. But I think that the WWE want to hold off just yet with Julia. I get the feeling that she's going to be a big deal, but they're kind of watching the timing.
I think they're keeping her in NXT for a while because she's just got the championship, and I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. Personally.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm going to stick with Flair.
I agree with you. Again, we talked about before how I thought the late 2010s, probably depth-wise, was probably the best. I think that WWE had as far as headliners for the women's era. Maybe late 20-teens, early this decade is when they really had, a really rock solid top end of the roster for the ladies. But the loss of Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, Asuka getting hurt, Charlotte Flair getting hurt, Becky Lynch moving on to acting. Whether or not she makes a return, we'll have to wait and see. That could be something that's thrown out of their left field, John. Just keep an eye on that. I know she's doing the Star Trek show that's coming up later this year, so we'll see exactly how that's going to work out. Because she said, I think she's intimated that she wants to go ahead and return back to the ring at some point in time. But I will say this, though, and Nikki Bella is another name that even though I just was never enamored with her in-ring wrestling style, I do know that she has a name, and as far as one of the premier talents, as far as popularity-wise, with her and her sister, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, obviously she was a big part of that. So she has an impending return as well, from what I'm hearing as well. So I think after all said and done, I might have to go with what you say, Charlotte Flair, but I think it might have to be a rematch against Rhea Ripley. I just think that's the match that I think that sells the most. I think it's harder. This is why I really don't like the two title system. I really think this is where you have weaknesses, because the top end of the ladies roster right now for WWE is kind of weak. And I'm going to be saying that. I'll just have to say that nicely. Yeah. So I think right now that I'm going to have to go with Charlotte Flair just by default, like you. After that, I just don't see a name. Liv Morgan, by default, because she just came off that great run of her own. But is she going to be put down in the pecking order, or is she going to stay up at near the top? So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going to go with Charlotte Flair as well, my friend.
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to see what surprises we get, because there's always that like one legend that they bring out or two. I'm looking forward to the surprises, because that's also a fun thing to look forward to with the Royal Rumbles. You never know who's going to be there. You don't know if Billy Gunn is going to show up like he did one year, so many years ago, or AJ Styles debuting, which, again, he could also be somebody that's coming back and be in the Rumble as well. That, again, on that men's side would bolster that roster and, again, make it very unpredictable. A friend of mine said that. He said the reason why he's excited for the Rumble is because there's so many different ways that the Rumble could turn out, and you don't know if it could be Cena versus Punk, or it could be a Punk versus Rollins, or it could be, there's just so many different variables in there. And it's being played up that it literally anyone could win. And he said, I'm buying it hook, line, and sinker. Even though I know it's wrestling, I'm excited to see who's going to win.
Before we end the Royal Rumble conversation, there's Cody Rhodes. I don't know why they still call it the Undisputed WWE Championship. If I was Gunther, wouldn't I dispute the Undisputed WWE Championship, even though they lost, even though he did lose to Cody in Saudi Arabia? Maybe that's why he doesn't dispute it. But again, why do you call it the Undisputed WWE Championship if you got a WWE World Champion on the other show? I be that as it may. Go ahead, my friend.
I don't like these women mid-card titles. I'm sorry. The U.S. title and the Intercontinental title for the ladies. Like, everyone has a title. So everyone has a title, so the title means nothing.
I don't mind it as much, John, because they have so much programming to fill, and you need at least a title that you have to defend on that show in order to do so. So the men and the women should get that equal right to do so. I think the Intercontinental title and the U.S. title should be defended on SmackDown and Raw regularly, both men and women. So since you're not going to do that with the world title like you used to, so if that's the case, I don't mind it as much. It's just the two world titles that just really irritates me, and I'll just leave it at that. But your thoughts on the undisputed WWE Championship with Cody Rhodes, basic in all sense, it's the number one title in the company against Kevin Owens in a ladder match. I really think this is going to be a fun match. I think this is going to be a nice blow off to what's upcoming as far as the Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. Your thoughts? I think it's Cody Rhodes retaining. I think it's Cody Rhodes heading to WrestleMania. Your thoughts on Kevin Owens, who's done an outstanding job as far as a heel? And I think, again, he's gone back and forth, heel, face, heel, face. Some people have said maybe he's turned too much in two different directions, too much. But right now, I think he's done a good job facing up against Cody Rhodes, at least making this program last a little bit longer than I thought it needed to in some cases, with a different opponent for Cody Rhodes.
Well, I am totally on board with you as that Cody Rhodes is winning. I just said it a few minutes ago that he's obviously going to be at Mania defending that title. So I think he definitely wins. I think it'll be interesting how he wins. Myself, I kind of see, since Sami Zayn has accidentally haluva kicked Cody twice, I could see where he turns heel and attempts to haluva kick Cody, but then hits Kevin, and then Cody hits Crossroads, goes up the ladder, takes the belt. I could see that happening in my idea of how that match should go. The question you got to ask is Randy Orton get involved somehow, to get his revenge and maybe spin off Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, because I know that's been a rumored match for Mania as well. I think it's going to be a hard-hitting, it's going to be a cringing type of viewing, because they're going to pull everything out. They're going to do all kinds of crazy bumps on the ladder, off the ladder, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a great match. But hands down, Cody Rhodes has got to win.
The only other match that's announced as of our airing is the WWE Tag Team Championships, the Friday Tag Team Championships. Again, don't get me started, John. It is DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa versus the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Ticelli and Chris Sabin, in a 2 out of 3 falls match. This could be the scene stealer. This could be the match of the card that a lot of people may be looking forward to, John. It could be very interesting to watch. I understand that a lot of people in WWE may have not liked the immediate push that the Motor City Machine Guns got, getting the titles almost immediately upon their arrival, but they did have a nice little run with it. Where they go from here and where creative goes from here, I'd like to see that out. But I do think the evil DIY needs to have the titles a bit longer. But this could be the match of the show. Whatever else is added on, I don't know yet, but this could be definitely the match I'm looking forward to on Sunday, or this weekend, excuse me.
I would probably book this to be the opener. I really would. What a better match! What better match to have to get everybody in that arena ready to go than this match? I think that I agree that I think DIY, they have some momentum. I think if the Motor City Machine Guns beats them and wins the tag titles, what do you do now? What do you do with Gargano and Ciampa? I think that they are doing a fairly good job as being heels. I'd say they have to stay together. I think that somehow they win. I think they win the first fall. Second fall goes to the Machine Guns, and then the third fall goes to DIY. It's going to be a high-octane offense for sure with this match, and that's why, again, if I was booking, I'd have that be the first match out.
So before we head on out, my friend, it is, of course, John Orlando for the PVDcast, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. We always got to go ahead and rip on AEW. I don't really want to be those guys ripping on AEW,
Well,
but we end up being those guys that rip on AEW because as fans or as observers, it is what it is. And we don't want to do it out of spite, but it is what it is. Go ahead, John.
wait. Are we finished with the NWA? I thought we had some more comments about the NWA. Or did you?
Well, the NWA. Right now, the NWA is at such a bad point or bad spot, John. Do we really want to go ahead and talk anymore about the NWA? Because, my gosh, I mean, Jax Dane has passed away. Rest in peace. Months ago, and you're finally airing his matches now. That just tells you, just how bad of a situation is. Your talent has left to AEW or other pastures, and as far as the good ones that are left. And yeah, I don't know how much credence we should give NWA at this point, because again, Billy Corgan, since gaining all the rights to NWA, has not, he had all this talk. He had interviews that led you to believe he had just a really great vision of what NWA could be. Then he puts in the wrong space, the wrong time. They're finally the opportunity to get a CW on there and get this, really in the better light, and they blew that opportunity, as you know. So I don't know how much more talk we want to go ahead and have on NWA, because I don't know how much more time that they will have left.
Okay. All right. Enough said. I was just.
I mean, dude, please, if you had something to say, absolutely.
Well, I mean, I don't know the inner workings of the NWA. That's what I want to know so much.
No one knows, John. That's the problem.
Okay. I think you succinctly wrap this up. I think let's move on to AEW. Let's move on.
Okay. I mean, at least with AEW, you got to give them credit, whether it's because they're putting money hand over fist from the cons or whatever you want to say. At least they're putting out a product that you can see on a regular interval basis. And whether you hate on it or whether you love it, God bless them. It's still a viable opportunity for a wrestler at this point in time and for a wrestling fan, because they will still have high-level matches there. So I give AEW credit for that. Their storyline, as far as the crafting, the building, for the most part, is truly bad. And the way that they position wrestlers has not been good, in my opinion. Why is MJF, Jeff Jarrett, Hall of Famer? Great, absolutely. Why are you positioning here with the Jeff Jarrett storyline when he should always, with his talent and the fact that he could be the face of your company and should be the face of your company, why is he at that level when he needs to be at this level? It's just absolutely just the things. I could go on for days on this. Why are these Death Riders? Why are I could go on for days, but I'll just say it like this, my friend. AEW is going to have its next big show in Australia right around Valentine's Day. I think the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And they had these grandiose plans of putting in the stadiums. And this is when Tony Khan was still putting everything in arenas as far as his dynamites, his collisions, etc. And since then, he has cut back and put them in smaller venues, although he's still adamant on the Texas Stadium deal. Okay, whatever. But my friend, they had the advance has been, I guess, rumored to be so bad that they've had to move it into arena, which I think is smarter, obviously, which they probably should have done in the first place. But I don't know, my friend. When it comes right down to it, this has really been something to see as far as AEW, where they're at and where they're going. They've got the steady deal, the steady money from Max now for the next 3 to 5 years. Max has been very quiet on their numbers as far as on Max, still getting about 600,000, 700,000 between in that range as far as the audience is concerned. So at this point in time, AEW, it is what it is. It is still a viable opportunity. So let's not put that out of the range at this point in time. So I will just say this, with AEW, it just absolutely is something that they need to go ahead and still take steps forward to be a better run organization than they are. And they're 5 years in. The excuses for where they're at and why they're doing what they're doing, they become less valid over the period of time. And I just hope again, I don't say it out of malice. I don't say it out of anger when I see All Elite Wrestling, getting ridiculed right and left and videos and getting clicks and people earning money off the fact that they could go ahead and talk trash on AEW. But you got to call it what it is. It's there. They're saying it for a reason. It's not an accident that AEW is in the position that they're in. And with that, again, it's just come down to the point where, John, I want to hear your thoughts on the AEW before we head on out.
I think Tony Khan just let us know what he thinks about our show. He just interrupted me. How rude.
How rude indeed, my friend.
No, sorry about that glitch. AEW shot themselves in the foot. This is an example of how terrible things have gotten. You have Tony Storm coming back, having amnesia, being the rookie, being the delightful kid, and then she's also going to be revealed 2 or 3 weeks later as timeless Tony Storm, who was portraying regular.
They did it. They did it too early. Two weeks too early. It was it's the only good angle that they've done in weeks, and they did it way too early, and they did it on a show that was getting destroyed by Saturday Night's Main Event. How stupid can you be? She had a great promo, Mariah May. Okay, I like that storyline where she became the champion and she was the understudy and all that, but she needs to go back to promo school. Let's just put it that. I'll just put that. She gave off a bland response, and all that stuff. Absolutely terrible. It's just bland 101. But Tony Storm, like you said, coming from that rookie and evolving into timeless Tony Storm and having that, I cannot say what she said, which is funny how they bleep that and that they don't bleep the S word on that show, which is just amazing as all heck to me. But your thoughts, my friend, absolutely great angle. Absolutely great promo by her, one of the best in years, and nobody will hear it because it got destroyed by Saturday Night's Main Event.
And Tony Storm is Australian, isn't she?
Yep.
You could have saved this until February, the beginning of February, and then what an amazing storyline angle that would have been if you waited. But instead,
on a dynamite, you're popular, yeah, most popular.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a mess. Why? I don't get this. This is my other gripe, and I'll leave it at this because I have probably 30,000 gripes about AEW. But why would Claudio Castagnoli hang out with the Death Riders? Just thinking about this logically, why would a guy that is very, very European hang out with somebody like Moxley? It doesn't make any sense. And their whole NWO-esque, we're going to destroy Rampage, blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's a terrible storyline. It's awful. Just stop.
John, I disagree with it. I think death in the Death Riders is very apropos because it's death every time they come on screen. And I'll just leave it at that. Before we head on out, 2 minutes left right here for you, right here at the State of Pro Wrestling. It is John Orlando for the PVDcast and Matt Talk, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching this. But 2 minutes left, my friend. What's going on with Matt Talk and the PVDcast?
Well, we are back this Sunday, a little bit off schedule because my partner was in Orlando for Decade Days, which was a big pop culture convention. And so we're actually going to be doing kind of back-to-back in our schedules, but we're looking forward to getting back to it and talking about those classic episodes. And as for the PVDcast, well, right now I have the episode up with two gentlemen, Tim and Craig. They're both independent toy makers. They have a really cool project where they are remaking the Eagle 1976 spaceship, which is from the old sci-fi show Space 1999. They also have another project that is a little bit of an homage to Scooby-Doo. That's listening right here. Of course, later on here this week, I'm going to drop my picks and my thoughts with my pro wrestling pundits about the Royal Rumble, and we'll make our predictions as to the matches and whatnot. So a lot of stuff going on the PVDcast, and I also want to say thank you very much, Gerald, because now when we do these live streams, they will be funneled through the PVDcast Facebook page as well. And I appreciate you giving me that opportunity to do that. It means a lot to me, and I'm excited to have another outlet where folks can hear our banter about AEW, the WWE, NWA, MLW, et cetera, right here at the State of Pro Wrestling.
Absolutely. The State of Pro Wrestling going forward. As long as we're on Talk Studio, I have the ability to go ahead and put it on there. Today was not exactly our successful day, but in doing that. But going forward, we will be posting it on the PVDcast on Facebook, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that. Very much forward to looking, hopefully, to be, this part of what we're doing still continuously, and going forward into WrestleMania and beyond, as far as the State of Pro Wrestling being a staple of your shows, John. Just looking forward to it, indeed.
Yeah, same here, because I love coming on here and talking with you about wrestling, even though we may not agree on certain things, but that's okay. That's fine. You're allowed to.
It's very minor between us. We're actually aligned on a lot. Okay, but once again, it is John Orlando for the PVDcast. Please go ahead and check out what he does there. And also, if you're a fan of the show Matlock, I'm going to say the new one as well. I know the old one, but
the new one's great.
The new one's as well. Yes, the new one's great. So all the fans from the new one, come over, go ahead to Matt Talk, because it's a big audience, because it's a popular show. So go ahead and catch Matt Talk, and of course, what he's doing in the world of pop culture at the PVDcast, indeed. But once again, it is John Orlando and Gerald Glassford, the tag team champions of the world as far as podcasting is concerned. We'll be back next month to talk about the fallout for the Royal Rumble, what's up ahead with WrestleMania, talk about Elimination Chamber. Can AEW get back on the right track? We'll find out what's going on with all that stuff, plus a detailed synopsis of our views on Japanese pro wrestling, what it was, what it is, and what we hopefully will be for the Japanese pro wrestling scene. That's all coming up on next month, right here on the State of Pro Wrestling for the PVDcast, Matt Talk, and the Pod.